Hello and welcome to the Telegraph studio and Business Reporter's HR Technology campaign, hosted by the Telegraph Online. I'm Alistair Greener. Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to attract the best talent for the job that has to be done within your organisation? Well, you're not alone. Most talent strategies are still using traditional methods that may not perform well enough. So what other methods are there? Well, this is what we're discussing today with Lisa Cox from Cubics. Good morning.
Morning.
Now, we've heard always, haven't we, that talent is the most important thing. But is that a bit of a cliche or is it actually the truth?
It's the truth. Talent ultimately create or manage all other assets an organisation has. And what's really interesting now, of course, is that we've got some really big challenges in terms of finding the right talent. So a skills shortage and also a shift in power from the employer to the employee.
You talked there about the skills gap and also the shift of power. Can you talk a bit more specifically about the challenges this brings?
Certainly. So there's a lot of concern now that we just don't have enough people with the skills we need. So for example, for roles in engineering and in technology. And what that leads to is organisations all competing really fiercely for the same small group of talent. And in terms of the shift of power, if we think about supply and demand, if there is just this small group, then the talent themselves are the ones holding the decision-making power about where they want to work. And what that means is organisations really need to step up their game in terms of attracting talent, think about their employer brand, make it clear that if individuals choose them, they can make a genuine contribution to the organisation.
Okay, so you're talking about this war on talent and employers lifting their game. So it sounds like they're going to have to develop a better strategy. How do they go about doing that?
I think they need to rethink the criteria they use to measure talent. So traditional criteria, organisations would look at things like university attended, university degree, work experience on the CV, ability tests. When organisations only look at these narrow measures, they miss out on great talent. We now need to be looking much more broadly. We need to look at things like values, behaviours, strengths, motivations. So for example, are you motivated to work individually or in a team? It's those kind of questions that really matter.
Now, it's great to have this fuller viewpoint, but surely you still have to start off with the basics with university education, don't you?
In some cases, that's still useful. So let's say, for example, an organisation wants to hire business analysts. You could look at the university they attended and the grade. What they gain from that may still be useful, but it's not enough to just look at that. We need to look at more. That was in the academic environment. We need to now look at the workplace environment, which is very different. It's not quite so clear what exactly you have to do by when. Everything changes. You've got different levels within the organisation to navigate. We design tests, for example, which place the individual in a scenario they might actually meet on the job. And they have to read that, think about this new scenario and choose how they would respond. So we're getting at how are they likely to behave in a new scenario? How are they going to adapt? We're getting better information that way.
Okay, so this more holistic view that you're talking about, can you give us an example of how that would actually work in practice?
Sure. So the Civil Service has done a really great job at this with their Fast Stream graduate programme. So they have done a lot of work to attract a really wide and really diverse population in to apply. So they do all sorts of events, they do social media, they do internships. And then we've worked with them to create an assessment process that maintains that really broad diversity through while still assessing who's likely to perform best in the role. So in practice, what that means is assessing individuals from different angles, getting at behaviours rather than just ability and previous experience. That gives candidates the best opportunity to demonstrate whether or not they're suitable for the role. And we do things as well, like piloting and analysing all of the assessments in that process to make sure that no assessment is harder for any particular group of individuals than another. The Civil Service has been doing this for 10 years or so, but most organisations are only just starting to look at it.
Now, you say you've been working this system with the Civil Service for the last 10 years, so it seems really obvious. Why is it taking everyone else so long to catch up?
I think the challenge is for the talent management professionals to convince other internal stakeholders that it's really worth making a short-term investment in an assessment process for a longer-term gain. And what's really helping actually is over the last 10 years there's been this building evidence for the benefits of a broader and more diverse workforce. So things like increased innovation, better problem solving, all the benefits of having a workforce which is more representative of a customer and client base. So that's what's really helping make that case. Of course, I think it's worth mentioning that organisations really have to be inclusive in their approach, not just actually diverse. So that means genuinely inviting, genuinely encouraging diverse ideas, diverse backgrounds, diverse perspectives. That's how they're going to get the benefit.
Okay, so let's talk about Cubics. Where do you fit into all of this? And if an organisation comes to you for help, what do you do? What's the procedure?
Sure, so we specialise in creating assessment processes, and I'd say there's three main stages there. So first we have to understand the organisation and the characteristics of great talent in that organisation. And we normally do that by holding interviews and focus groups. In terms of getting that broader view, of course, it's really important that we have a diverse group of individuals in those interviews, otherwise we get a very narrow view of what the organisation's about. The second step would be creating the process itself. So we would create a process which has a range of measures that get at talent from different angles, not just the traditional university and things like that. We'd also often train people at the organisations in things like how to interview, how to assess, to make sure that no unintended bias is actually creeping in. And really importantly, if we're thinking back to organisations attracting talent, it's really important the whole process is really engaging for candidates, because what we want obviously is at the very end when offers are made for candidates to actually be inspired to take them up. The third part would of course be evaluation, so checking that everyone has a fair and equal chance of making it through the process.
So it all sounds great, but how do you actually measure success?
I would say, as an organisation is becoming more diverse and more inclusive, how well is it meeting today's challenges? Is it successfully filling those skills gaps? Is it genuinely attracting great talent and thriving as a result? And if we go back to the point earlier about attracting great talent, being more inclusive is really going to help. That's a very attractive thing for individuals. Ultimately, people want to come to work and they want to feel like they have made an individual contribution, their voice has been heard, and that has been a part of the organisation's success.
You've certainly given us a great insight of why we should have a more holistic view of attracting the very best talent. Lisa Cox from Cubics, thank you very much indeed.